How
But
do, how do we check in with ourselves, man? Share the wisdom.
how do we check in with ourselves?
Yeah, how do you do it? How do you
Well,
practice self-awareness?
I think that I think that especially recently, what has been important for me is a routine of sorts, meaning having a time set out for specific self-care, and for me the best time is in the morning.
Mm.
And to relate to the last question a little bit, when we first started the quarantine, me and my girlfriend were in an apartment in Seattle, and it's just the two of us. And at first it was a little difficult because we were adapting to it's just us in this place together. And so we kind of butted heads, but then we kind of realized that like we need to have a routine, and we also need time to get to our own centered space. And so for me it was like, okay, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna do the stretches, I'm gonna do my breathing, I'm gonna do the cold shower, then I'm gonna get some exercise, and then I eat a big breakfast, and pretty much if I do that, by the time after breakfast is over, I'm pretty much like whatever's coming for the day, I can handle it, and that's, for me, that's just been really the biggest difficulty, is actually doing it every morning, because some mornings I wake up and it's like the first thing I have to do is apply for this musicians relief fund, or I have to respond to something right away. And sometimes there's something that seems so important that it's more important than their morning routine. But in reality, it really feels like that's the most important thing. And it's just, as long as I can have the willpower to get up and knock that out,
Right.
even if it's shorter.
Casa,
That
may
really,
I add something to what Casa's saying? What you're saying is so wonderful, because you're reminding me that structure regulates emotion. And so regardless of what else comes in the day, we start our day with order. And when we maintain structure and we have a plan that we follow through as if we were back at work every single day, 9 to 5 or more, we can stave off depression and malaise and feelings of loneliness and isolation. So I think, Casa, what you're doing is creating a structure, invoking it on a daily basis, and trying so hard to stick with it, because it will regulate the rest of your day.
yes, totally true. And I noticed that currently, at least for me, it feels like the meters are up a little more, meaning that like if I get imbalanced, the low feels worse, and maybe that's because there are less distractions available, or less outside stimulants available. But I feel that like it's natural to kind of get off balance, or to lose your exact discipline or routine. But currently, if I do, it really like shakes me in a way that's a little more intense than normal. And I'm also curious, as do other people relate to that? Is that a common trend currently?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this past week's been hard for me. I've been struggling, um, and I'm usually, as a coach, I'm usually I take the position of being of service to everyone, and being present is the gift, and helping people to find their center, and then that in return lifts them. And I'm finding myself needing that. I need a me to help me, you know. And it's been I think for me it's been a little bit like I'm very empathic, and I feel the weight of the world. I don't know how else to say it. It's just so heavy sometimes, and I think that it compounds my own lows on top of my own lows, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know how to explain that, but that's sort of
I
how
want,
I've been feeling.
I'd love to just say something particularly to what you're saying, LJ, which is that when I find myself in a darker place than usual, I really remind myself that none of us are alone in this universe, and that we really are in ultimately, metaphorically good hands, and that I release some of that to the universe because we can't do it alone. And when you recognize that you are part of a grander plan, spiritually, you find yourself being less isolated, less alone, and less frightened.
True.
Definitely. I feel that. Yeah. Before we continue, I want for anyone who's just joining the call or joined the call in the last 15, 20 minutes, I'd like to reintroduce the panel and the panelists. We have Nicole Anziani, who is a registered dietitian, certified diabetes care and education specialist, and also the co-author of the Health Professional's Guide to Nutrition Management of Thyroid Disease. And this book can be pre-ordered right now on Amazon. We have Casa Overall, who is a touring jazz musician, an MC, a singer, a producer, a drummer, and a morning routine advocate of big breakfasts and cold showers. I love it. I love it. I took it all in. This is so great. And we also have Dr. Norman Freed, Dr. Norman Freed, who is a clinical psychologist, disaster mental health specialist, and author of Reclaiming Humanity, a guide to maintaining the inner world of the child facing ongoing trauma, available on Amazon.com. So continuing with some of these, this has been a wonderful experience so far. I hope you are all having a good time and finding this valuable, both all of our viewers and panelists alike. Really appreciate you all being here. Let's see here. I think, Nicole, this question is probably for you. I've been like moody. And I'd like to say I'm taking my vitamin D and I'm trying to get that 5 minutes of sunshine, although it's been kind of rainy here in Ohio. But what is there anything else I could be doing to sort of balance out that roller coaster right now in tandem with practicing my meditation and practicing self-awareness, and just really getting in touch with my triggers, as Norman was saying. Is there anything else that I can supplement with, maybe even through food?
Yeah, and oh boy, there's so many things. Stop me if I ramble, please. But one thing I'm thinking, so as women, there's we have sort of a special relationship with cortisol. So we need to tend and befriend in order to help balance our hormones, which can help us with moodiness. And so what that means, we need time with other women. So right now, and I was seeing in the chat, some folks have been doing virtual chats. If you're at home and you are physically distancing, I think we should call it physically distancing instead of socially distancing, so we can still be social.
Still being social, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like if we make time to be with others in whatever way we can, that can help us. If you're sheltering in place with someone, if you give them a hug, that can help. We need our oxytocin, so that's something. But biochemically speaking, what we eat, how we eat, that plays a big role. Our blood sugar fluctuating, which can happen more when our stress hormones are kind of whack, that can lead us to feel moody. And I think probably Dr. Freed, if you want to jump in anytime, but what I would recommend right now, because before COVID times, folks may have had different food and health goals. A lot of people practice different dietary strategies, but then when you're at home for a prolonged period of time, believe it or not, I don't think this is a good time to start a diet, because you don't want to get into the restriction mode, which can lead to a binge, and that leads to all other kind of moods. So I think right now, to have the idea of being nourishing, right? But balancing your blood sugar. So something I might suggest is in all of your meals, if you can include protein of some sort, like 4 to 6 ounces, really depending on your body size and your needs. Also something with fiber, like vegetables, and some healthy fat. So, which is also important for the brain. If you can make those, and also fluid. So I kind of like to think of the 4 F's. So fluid, fiber, fat, and 4 to 5 ounces of protein. Um,
Vodka?
Not vodka. Actually, oh my goodness, I'm glad that
Just
you
kidding.
brought
It's
that up.
water. I promise
Yeah.
you.
If that was vodka, I'd have to say I'm both impressed and scared. But but that's actually something important too, because right now I know that some folks are turning to wine to try to calm down, and that can have another rebound effect of now you're waking up 3 to 4 hours later, your cortisol can get wonky. So, alcohol can actually decrease our immune system and give us
Oh.
the moodiness more than we thought. So I'm going all over the place. So maybe with in regard to food, managing your blood sugar through these nutrients, making sure you're very hydrated throughout the day. So if you're drinking like a cup of water an hour, which most people don't do, that can really help your mood. Because a lot of times we feel cranky or annoyed, and we're actually dehydrated. It's
Hmm.
amazing what water will do, and you feel so much better, and you can have less headaches and love your partner more, so you have less fights.
That's great.
But
Thanks. That's great to know. Thank you.
hey.
I have to stay more hydrated. Okay, so cup of water an hour. Drink wine earlier. Is
um,
that
well,
you can't
well,
get rid of the wine, so drink it earlier or
so sustainable practices for wine, let's say, or alcohol. So for women, really, we're lowest risk if we just have one drink a day, and
okay.
men up to two. So women one, men two.
Mm.
And you might metabolize it better if you have it with food. So maybe if you have a glass of wine with dinner,
Yeah.
feeling balanced, you have something with protein and fat in there, and it won't tank your blood sugar, because blood sugar is also important in terms of our immune system. We want to many people, I don't want to scare anybody, because this is something that we can prevent, work on, improve. It can be obliterated, but many people have pre-diabetic levels of blood sugar and don't know it, and that can affect our immune response. And we're seeing with coronavirus or COVID-19 that that our blood sugar levels play a role in our ability to fight this disease. So it's both helpful in terms of our everyday experience, and also our ability to just prevent and fight a virus if we need to.
Something else that you said, Nicole, that I wanted to just remind everyone is you were also talking about managing and maintaining connections. So when you are quarantined with someone, hugging does release the neurotransmitter oxytocin, which we know is the love drug. It's a God-given neurotransmitter that makes us feel better. We feel buoyant. But for those of us that are quarantined alone or can't be in touch with others out there, there's still something known as mirror neurons. So when you do anything from Zoom to FaceTime, as long as you're making eye contact with another, you're engaging the mirror neurons in each other's eyes, which allows you to feel a little bit of the oxytocin as well. So managing connections in this time of confinement can be very effective in helping us remain buoyant and become less lonely and self-loathing. So I wanted to thank you for that, Nicole.
Thank you. I love that. I've never heard that term. That's awesome.
This is I'm like I'm trying to be a human sponge here. So great. This is kind of a question to everyone, and each of you have touched on it a little bit, but there's obviously so much that we cannot control right now, and it's getting, if it hasn't already gotten super real for people, it's getting super real. I don't know about you, but it used to be like a few weeks ago, I knew of somebody who knew of somebody who knew somebody who was sick with COVID-19. And now I have friends with relatives and other friends, immediate family that are sick and dying. and so the circle is closing in. Half of my friends, quite literally, half of my friends in the music industry are not able to work, and or have been furloughed or let go from their jobs, and are looking for essential work just to make ends meet. Again, just so much out of our control right now. What can we control?
Okay, I'd love to jump in if I may, and
Please.
I want to start by saying, LJ, that what you described is one of the two major side effects of trauma, which is a lack of control. Remember, we don't enter into trauma; trauma enters into us. We didn't ask for this to happen, and we now have it inside of us. We feel a lack of control. The other experience is a lack of connection. We feel disconnected from others. So recovery involves both connection with new people or reattachment to old connections, as well as a sense of being in charge of something, a sense of empowerment. So here's one thing I tell all my patients that helps us gain a sense of control in an otherwise out of control experience, and that is the power of story. Every one of us, whether it's through music or through art or through dialogue itself, every one of us who's been hurt by life has a story to tell. And as long as we find someone who's capable of hearing our story in all of its details, gory as they may be, without minimizing it and telling us things such as it's going to be okay, but truly listens to our story of woe and worry, that begins to help us release from this sense of isolation and panic and lack of control. And so remember, if this trauma which has happened to us is now inside of us, we need to let it out. We need to show it the door, if you will. And we do so by sharing our story with someone who's capable of listening, and even better, someone who's going through something quite similar. So we realize we're not alone in this at all.
Yeah, solidarity in sharing
helps create a sense of control.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Very powerful. Casa, what can we control?
I think we can control where we put our attention. And that's not to say that we should ignore what's going on in the world, because we're all connected and we're all being affected by each other's situations. But I do think that there's a tendency to just kind of be on repeat with the information and the updates of what's happening. And that you don't want to get to the level of distraction or wasting time, you know. And I had a bit of a situation with being a musician. As soon as everyone became quarantined, there were a lot of Instagram live performances, and everybody was performing live, and it became kind of the thing. And I felt like I didn't want to, for some reason. You know, I felt like I didn't have the performer in me at the time, you know. And so I was kind of trying to figure out, like, should I just be constantly on the internet and, you know, performing and engaging in social media and all of this? And I guess I had to allow myself to say, no, maybe that's not the way that I want to do it. And I took more of an internal approach and started writing and working on music in more of the slower compositional approach, you know. And now things are starting to really open up, because this time and space has allowed me to work on longer pieces and prepare. You know, I'm going to put things out, but I don't have the same, like, I got to be online every day showing what I'm doing. And, you know, and so I think that allowing yourself to step back, you can actually use this time in a way that this could be an opportunity, you know, to develop in a more long form kind of way.
Beautiful. And there are many spiritual thinkers and writers that would say that what you're talking about, Casa, is something known as spiritual, as soulful emptiness. And what soulful emptiness is this ability to withstand the need to distract oneself and allow the power that comes from within to reach to the outside. Because believe it or not, something can come from nothing. And if we give ourselves permission to once in a while just experience that soulful emptiness, there's so much creativity that's about to come through us that's always been inside to begin with.
Totally. Yeah, it's been amazing too, because at first a lot of the things I was feeling was like, it took me back to when I first started making beats or first started dealing with music in certain ways. And I haven't allowed myself to work in that way because I've been so goal oriented for the past few years of like, gotta get ready for this show, gotta finish this album, and I wouldn't even allow myself to tinker, you know? And so now that I'm back to tinkering a little bit at this level of advancement as a musician, I'm kind of like, whoa, I need to be doing this forever, you know, like, you know, so I definitely think that this might be more for the artists and creative types, but I would definitely urge them to slow down a little bit. You know, you might come up with a whole new idea, you know, but we kind of have to step back and, you know, put pause on it a little bit, you know.
I love that so much. As someone who works in a lot of content creation, I need to do that. I think that there's an opportunity for creativity in space without those parameters, right? And I forget that because of the deadline or the, you know, I gotta, and the inner dialogue that's just like, churn it out, you know? And before I know it, I'm back in bed. A whole day has gone by. I don't know where the time's gone because I haven't even been outside for more than 5 minutes, you know? So it's beautiful what you said, because I think it demonstrates grace.
Absolutely. And grace tells us that every one of us was born individual and unique. And so if we can get in touch with the unique aspects of ourselves, instead of searching on the outside, let's search on the inside. And when we go inward, there's so much we're going to find. And it's going to come out artistically as well as in every other possible way.
So do less.
Do less.
Chill out.
Chill out. Okay. Woo, boy, this is taking the pressure off a little bit. I'm already feeling my shoulders drop a bit. Thank you. This is great. I wanted to take a couple questions. Are we all okay to take some questions from our viewers?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. My computer died, so I'm using my iPhone to talk. So I might not be able to read the whole question. So
okay, I'll read it. That's cool. I can do that. No problem. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah. So let's see here. From Camilla. Hi, Camilla. Hi, all. Thanks for sharing your ideas and experiences in here. Any advice on how to keep yourself motivated to keep on doing a daily routine? How do you react when you skip one day of routine?
I would love to jump in and say, if I can, very quickly, the word that comes to my mind, Camilla, is forgiveness. Every one of us needs to be able to forgive ourselves for not being perfect, especially at a time like this where our cortisol levels are out of whack and our oxytocin is not happening. We aren't seeing people we love. We're not wearing our power suits. It's okay to forgive yourself for being human. The sooner you forgive yourself for your humanness, the sooner your human grace is going to come through and you'll get everything you need to do, get done. Forgiveness.
Yeah, I needed to hear that. I have that question as well. But I was thinking another thing is also finding inspiration may also help push you to do the work. You know, I was thinking a bit like having something that you're very excited about in the day or in life, whatever, some kind of work that you want to get to do, is a good motivator for me to do the stuff that I also know helps me get in the right state of mind to do the work I want to do. You know, so
What you're saying, Casa, reminds me of the concept of self-love. And one way that we motivate ourselves is by recognizing what we've done in this life thus far that has changed and made the world better. Simply put, whose life is better simply because I'm in it and I love them. And that's somebody who's in your private audience. So for those of us that perform, we understand that we can perform to 10,000 people, or we can perform to 2 or 3 people in our private audience. Those that are in our private audience, our mother, our priest or rabbi, somebody who left us a note and we keep it tucked away in the back of our wallet, yellowed and over time in tears, but still says, you matter to me. When we perform and think about who's in our private audience, whose lives we've made better, we become motivated and recognize we have worth, we have power, we have things to do in this life, and we get started.
Mm.
Right on. And if I could add one thing too,
Please.
just from the nutrition perspective, because this happens a lot in terms of, when we start a new nutrition initiative, right? There's always Monday morning where people put a lot of pressure on themselves to start this whole new thing. And then let's say you don't do it all perfectly, you might have that feeling where it's all or nothing, black and white thinking, all right, I'm not going to do it again till Monday, So there's a couple things to do. One is to give yourself that grace to, well, what about the next meal or the next time in the day? Like, let's say you wanted to pick up these daily routine tips, like you want to do breathing exercises in the morning, yoga, meditation, and those are all new things. So that might actually feel really intimidating if it's your day one and you're doing all of those 3 things. So maybe asking yourself, what's realistic for me? Or we use SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely, so time bound. So you maybe doing just one thing at a specific time, then you can measure how often you do it. So maybe not every day just yet, make a realistic time frame for yourself that you feel you can achieve, and maybe give yourself, by a certain date, I will do this. Maybe just doing one new thing is enough. So even though, a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, we're all home now and we have all the time in the world, that's probably not true. You probably are doing a lot of other things that maybe grocery shopping now, it feels like going to war. You're like in a hazmat suit going to the store, and it'll take, you got to clean everything. So you're probably busier than you think. So maybe one new lifestyle thing is all you can digest at a time, and that's okay. And then let's say you forgot to do it today, there's always later in the day, or there's always tomorrow. And not hating yourself because it's something new. And if you had a small child near you that was learning how to do something new, you wouldn't just give up on them if they couldn't do it the first time. So we kind of have to treat ourselves as that small person that we wouldn't just quit on. Give ourselves time to learn a new behavior.
it's real.
I love what you said, Nicole, about if it's part of your morning routine and you don't do it, well, you can do it in other parts of the day. It doesn't have to be in the morning. You made that rule, and you can have forgiveness, there, right?
Yeah.
I love that. I love
Casa,
that.
you'll be taking cold showers at night now, Casa.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's great.
It's like
I've got notes.
100
So
times
many notes.
harder. It's so hard to do that at night, But I was gonna say, actually, one thing that's I think, like what you said, is about adding one thing and kind of incrementally is definitely very important. And I think that you can tap into that, the kind of kid in you that likes a challenge and likes to kind of, okay, I did 2 steps today, and then I'll do 3 the next day, and 4, and you kind of build up to those kind of little inner challenges. I remember when I first got here, down the street there's some steps, and it's a whole lot of steps, a bunch of flights, and people run up. And the first day I walked up, and I got winded after just one flight, and I actually got really paranoid that maybe I had the corona, and because I'm in good shape, and and so every time I walked up the steps, I would get winded. And so one day I just was like, that's it. And I ran up the whole steps. I just pushed through and ran up it. And then the next day I did it twice. And then the next day I did it 3 times. And I kept doing it. And eventually I was able to go up these steps eight times, And the thing, I think the secret to it was a game, and every time it was like just a little bit more, and you can tap into that recess part of your brain that likes to like keep score and get better, that kind of thing. So I use that as a tool, I think.
Beautiful.
That's cool. Thank you all so much. We've got a couple more questions here, and we're at time. Are you comfortable going over a few more minutes, everyone, or does anyone have a hard stop?
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you so much.
Let's do some hot takes.
All right. Okay, cool. So a question from Rachel Ownsman. Hi, Rachel. How do you recommend connecting with a therapist in isolation? Norman, I think this one is for you.
Well, it's interesting because I've been on a lot of news media shows in the last 3 weeks, and what I'm finding is that people from all over the country are, at least this country, and sometimes in other countries, are actually reaching out to me, and I do teletherapy. So while I'm sitting right now in my office in Great Neck, staring at a screen and talking to all of you, I'm actually able to do that throughout the day. So instead of doing one-on-one therapy in person, where I actually like the energy of the human being in front of me, the next best thing is this type of teletherapy. So I'm with the patient hour after hour, sitting here, and while it may be lonely, I'm able to reach people who can reach to me. So you can reach out to a therapist and ask them if they're making hours for some remote teletherapy, FaceTime therapy. What's interesting is that I feel a lot closer to my patients. I see their living rooms. I see a lot of things I wouldn't see if they come into my office. And it really helps and enhances the development of intimacy in the relationship so that people can get better faster. So don't be afraid of reaching out to your therapist. Counselors are there through telehelp, and we want to help you, and we can.
I love that. Thank you. Norman and Casa and Nicole, if you have some place where people can get in touch with you, an email address or a social channel, if you wouldn't mind sharing that in the chat, that would be so helpful.
I'm not able to share it in the chat because, like Casa, I'm using my phone, but I'll tell you that you can reach me. You can reach me simply at my Instagram page, which is at Norman Fried, NormanFried. And I post 60-second clips every day about how to make it through this corona phase of life with the greatest amount of grace, spirituality, and health. And you can DM me and I'll answer you back.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Same for me. Instagram at Casa Overall, KASSAOVERALL. I usually check my DMs, and I'm pretty responsive on there. And yeah.
Rachel, thanks for starting your follow. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And got lots of music. Eat close to the music too, so you can find. That's an easy way to get to a lot of the music I'm putting out as well.
Great.
And Casa, for all of those who are not in the know, Casa's dope. You have to check them out. You have to.
Absolutely.
I have a new album called I Think I'm Good, and it came out on February 28th. And we were very fortunate to get it out right before all this happened, So, and I'm just honored that people are digging the music. So, yeah.
Great. I just put that in the chat, Casa. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. We do have one final question, and this came in from an anonymous viewer. Let's see here. The question is, can trauma be considered long-term abuse? And Norman, I think you touched on that a little bit earlier on in the call, but is it long-term? Is this, as soon as this pandemic is over, do we come out of trauma? Like, how does that work?
So I want to say, that's an amazing question. And the answer is that we are just at the beginning of our traumatic experience. We are basically hunkering down and we're in fight mode. And we're doing the best we can while we're in combat. But when the war is over, we're going to look back and realize where we've been and what we've been through and where we are now. So what I want to say without scaring anybody is that the traumatic experience is yet to happen to us, because when this is over and we are free to go out and reach the world, we might find ourselves traumatically afraid to touch people, to shake hands, to even trust another person. We might find ourselves having flashbacks to the time when we were quarantined, or having unbidden memories of the bad things that happened during this time in our lives. It is not a lifetime sentence of trauma, but it does take a while. I can't tell you how long, because trauma does not have a calendar. It kind of lasts as long as it does. But if we honor feelings and we give them airtime and show them the door, so to speak, with friendship and relationships, through music, through art, through analysis, if we let it out, the trauma will eventually leave us. Please remember, trauma and fear is like nuclear waste. It's non-biodegradable. So when you find yourself sad, don't bury it. It won't go anywhere. Let it out, unearth it, share it with the world, and you will heal soon.
So powerful. Thank you, Norman. For those of you who are interested or know someone who needs access, I've dropped the domestic abuse hotline number in the chat, 1-800-799-7233. I want to thank you all so much for such a wonderful panel today. I am honored to be on this with all of you. You've brought such knowledge and value and helpfulness to everyone today. Thank you for serving our community.
Thanks for having me.
So much.
It's been wonderful. Thank you
Had
so
a
much.
blast.
I appreciate it so much. Bobby, back to you. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Thank you, Norman. Thank you, Casa. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, LJ. Thank you, my Mondo partners, Joanne, Elliot, Jack. We really are so proud to put these events on. This was one where I enjoyed it as a viewer and learned a lot. And so I thank you all for your time. To all of our viewers who have joined us, obviously, we hope you've taken away some news, some inspiration from this, and of course that you're safe and you're healthy, as are your loved ones. And we have another event Thursday afternoon at 5 p.m. So signing off here from New York. Again, well wishes to all of you. Thank you to our incredible panelists and to LJ, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you. The same to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.